Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 246. Covers. Yay! This vlog has two very interesting origins. The first comes via request from my dear friend Jackie Hewitt, Professor Jackie Hewitt, and Jackie requested, you might remember a few vlogs ago, the titles vlog, and when that one was released she said quite rightly, wow, I think maybe titles and covers might be a very interesting pair. Have a think about our vlog on covers. Nice one, Jackie. So I did that and I thought, oh right, so I'll gently start gathering research, and I thought, oh right, maybe about February or March next year there might be an interesting session on covers that might emerge. But then something else happened, which is a very COVID story, and I received a relatively urgent request from a dear friend and a dear colleague, and that moved that February-March vlog to pretty well now. Let me tell you what happened. My amazing, brilliant former, although who knows the future, my former publisher, the publisher who changed my life, Caroline Winterskill, now Dr. Caroline Winterskill, is working as an academic, and she's teaching publishing at the University College London. And she needed, at reasonably short notice, an academic writer, an academic author, to offer some commentary to her students about how authors and publishers, particularly academic authors and publishers, negotiate a relationship around, you've guessed it, covers. Fabulous. So that focused my mind a little bit. So with these two strands of requests, I thought, yeah, let's bring this one forward. And you know, we're going to talk about covers, book covers, as an academic writer. And look, the session today is mainly about book covers, and I won't apologise for that, because I know there's thousands of you out there where writing a book is your dream. To actually see your name on a book cover is something that you really wish for and hope for. And you know what? Don't let anybody take that dream away from you. And in Australia, and can I say, I haven't heard it in any other country, so that's why I'm particularly pinging this country, and I can say this accent is not fake, I am an Australian, but the only country on earth where I've heard the phrase books don't matter, books don't matter, the only time I've heard that phrase is in Australia, and it's come out of the mouths of very, very senior people in the Australian university system. Bless. So, you know, the notion that books don't matter in your discipline, they're wrong. You go to Springer, from creative arts to engineering, there are books and book series. So also don't assume that the present as it exists in your discipline in terms of publishing is the past of your discipline, or indeed the future. But for those of us who are involved in visuality in our research, presenting the iconography of our research, we take photographs in our research, then we do need to focus much more than we do on the visual component of our research. And I'm talking about from physics to tourism to regional development to indeed art and design. And therefore this is a more general and useful discussion for many of you today, because here's my argument. When we think about book covers, we think about our visuality as researchers, and that's a productive and positive thing to do. You see, it forces us as researchers, as writers, as authors, when we look at the book cover, it forces us to get beyond the me. Me. Have I told you about me? Me. I'm terribly important. Me. Me as a researcher. My research. Me. I'm important. Me. And the book cover forces us to let go of our singular vision of our research, the singular vision of our words, our research, the text we create, whether it be an article or a book chapter or a book, And it makes us focus on releasing our research, releasing our writing to an audience of readers. And the cover, the visuality of our research, is the interface for that movement from me as author to those people over there, our readers. I also want to do a shout out to all our wonderful biologists, our chemists, our physicists, who are, those disciplines are highly visible disciplines. And many of you, I know, contribute unbelievably powerful photographs and images for your own articles, but also you provide the cover art, and that's what it is, the cover art for academic journals. And that's a very special and beautiful task. So I'm trying to honour today all the visual producers in all our disciplines. And I hope that what I'm talking about might be useful for you today too in some form. So in an earlier vlog, I argued that we cite to serve our readers. And also we select our covers to serve our readers. So attention to the visual presentation of our research, whatever visual interface you may choose, moves our discussion to the audience and moves the discussion to thinking through the channels of dissemination for our research. So let's focus on covers, and I note the generalisability of this discussion to all sorts of visual presentations of our research. And I'm, in a pretty interesting position at this point of my career to offer some commentary on this area. I have published 19 books, book 20 and 21 are currently being written, and I use a lot of digital storytelling in my research, and I take a lot of photographs. So throughout my entire career, from my first refereed article, I've taken the photography for that research. So visuality has always been part of the research that I do. And also I have designed a pretty large chunk of my book covers. I've provided the photographs, yes, but I've also designed the covers. So, my books, Tracking the Jack, which was my first book, I designed that cover, first book. But also Liverpool at the South Seas, digital dieting, and I am interested in photography a lot. So part of the reason that I do work in design is so that I can frame the trajectory of my research. And I've also developed over my career, and it gives me a lot of privilege, quite emotional saying this, I've developed incredible partnerships with editors of scholarly journals, but also scholarly monographs like Caroline. And when those partnerships work, and I've had 3 of these significant relationships with editors in my life, when those relationships work, the book covers are stunning. So covers matter to me, and there is a reason, because the book cover is a moment of ending, but also a moment of beginnings. Let me explain. And I want to acknowledge here Juliet Gardner's work, a wonderful piece she wrote called Recuperating the Author. Really interesting piece, Recuperating the Author. And she argued that the cover is a moment in a book's journey, moving it from the private space to the public space. So the cover is the moment where we as authors let go of meaning. We recognise our content, our meaning, and that's great, but we also recognise that we have to release that content for new vistas and new contexts. So the cover actually is what delivers our research to its destination, to readers. So I want to offer 5 ideas for you, things for you to consider in your visual research life. What makes a great cover, and how you use visuality to communicate and to connect with the audience of your research. 1. First point. The book cover is not about you. The book cover is about your audience. It's about you bringing readers to your research. So the book cover exists to sell books, and that includes academic books. It's also important, I think, and that's why I'm talking about money today. You know, I always talk about, if I can talk about money, I will. But it is important that academic authors, we give ourselves a chance for book sales. We just go, oh, look, they don't sell. Yes, they do. So give yourself a chance to sell books and get an income stream, right? So it is important that we give ourselves that chance, and we've just got to give ourselves a chance every now and again to move our audience from an academic audience, which is great and important, but move it to a trade audience, move it to a general audience. And look, that may be the policy audience in some areas, it may be the citizen scientist audience for some disciplines. So academics and all of us as writers, we focus on the research, which we have to do, and we focus on the writing, which we have to do, and that's crucial. But we then have to remember that publishing is a business, and it makes its money through selling our product. And remember, covers at their most basic are advertising for our research. Now, you may be the best writer, the best researcher in the world, but if people don't know you exist, they'll never read your work. So the cover is advertising. And we as researchers have got to get more comfortable with the idea that our research is bought and sold through many different interfaces. We've got to be calm about that. We have to prepare our research so that it is read. Now that's not tacky, that's not embarrassing. This is, to be frank, real engagement. This is real impact, and it's operating at the interface between our university and our societies. Put another way, when we focus on these book covers, we are opening the gates of our university to new audiences and new citizens. 2, covers have many agendas. Understand them and navigate them. It is a cliche, isn't it? Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a book by its cover. And of course that cliche supposedly refers to people. It took me a while to work that out, but it supposedly only refers to people. You know, don't judge people by first appearances, because that's shallow. Now we all do this, obviously. That's how we move through life. We look at someone and we make a judgment, girlfriend. But let's face it, Kim Kardashian is not Kim Kardashian because of her intelligence and personality. Let's just put that out. So a book has been judged by its cover. And books like Kim Kardashian are completely judged by their covers. So the cover generates income. The cover generates an income stream for your research. So covers serve many different masters. Yes, they can be beautiful, and beauty's great. I think it's a bit overrated, but if it's beautiful, that's lovely. But I'm more interested in covers being thought-provoking. And by thought-provoking, I mean grab people round the neck and say, you will buy this book. Thought-provoking. So the cover must sell books, and most importantly, it must sell books, you've guessed it, online. So covers have to be geared these days for screen-based environments. So therefore you've got to do lots of checks with your book cover. Put it in black and white, put it in colour, put it on a screen, put it on low res. I actually start often by putting it in one of my bookshelves at home, having a look at it there like it would be in a bookshop, but then I spend a lot of time moving between different computers and looking at that cover on different screens, okay? Now, I have an argument, and you can disagree with me, I welcome that. The best covers, I think, particularly for academic work, is abstract. And that abstraction allows all sorts of different audiences to claim that work. So let me give you an example. Where is it? There it is. I published this book earlier this year with the wonderful Tiffany Lindell-Knight and Natalie Hills. Hello to you both. The Creative PhD. Now, this is an important one. You know, I'm old. This was book 19. Okay, so I've had a lot of goes at this gig with publishers. So when I was thinking about what the cover of this book would look like, and I knew it would have some sales, so the cover was going to matter, I gave Emerald Publishing, which is where it was published, I gave them one word as a brief for this cover. And that word was a weird one. Rothko-esque. Rothko-esque. So what I meant was the artist Rothko and his compositional strategy, which was often described as colour field painting, right? So what I wanted was open space, expressive colour, open, and highly abstract. So for me, this was my brief to the publishers and the designers. This is sort of what I was after. I wanted something abstract, intense, and powerful. And I thought, like the book here, like the Creative PhD, that would speak to the audience. And wow, that has been a successful strategy. The point, though, was my brief was abstract in and of itself, so I just said Rothko-esque, right? And why I did that is that was my vibe, and it gave editors and it gave designers space to breathe, space to be themselves, space to use their expertise and take that brief and do something with it, and it worked. 3, covers must tell a story. Now this is hard to do. The cover has to tell a story, and this is sort of a story maybe about what is the book about? What is the book about? It needs to do a bit more than that for us who are academic authors. It's got to capture the arc of your research. So the cover, like all of our representations of research, it must communicate, right? So your cover has to be big, and that doesn't mean it sort of captures a bit about your results or it captures a bit about your introduction. It's got to capture the project. The cover has got to capture, what's the point, dude? What's the point? Why should someone care about this research? Why should they care? Why should they spend their hard-earned money? Why should they spend 2 days of their life with this research, right? So ask yourself the question when you're looking at a cover. Does the image represent the research in some form? Does it have some intrigue? Does it present a bit of space for the audience to find their own way through this material? And crucially, 3, does this cover help your research stand out from competitors? Yeah. So I try and make sure that the entire argument of my book is somehow on the cover. Now I fail a lot trying to do that, but Liverpool of the South Seas did it, Tracking the Jack did it, Digital Dieting did it. And the case of Liverpool of the South Seas, which is probably my best cover, I think. So this Liverpool of the South Seas was about Perth, as in Australia's Perth and its popular music. And I took the cover, did the cover art, did everything. And I took that photograph on an incredibly cloudy day in Perth in Western Australia. And this book was about how the musical cultures of the north of England had transplanted themselves into Perth in Western Australia. That was the argument of the book. And so this was, of course, at the height of that moment of Perth's popularity, Eskimo Joe, the Panics, going back to the Triffids and so forth, and into the future of Perth popular music and its policy environment. And so what was I going to do? Well, I had this remarkable cloudy Perth day. And so I took my Rickenbacker 330. It's my Rickenbacker. Those of you that don't know a great deal about musical instruments, that was John Lennon's black and white Rickenbacker during the early days of Beatlemania. So that's my guitar, and that was the instrument I used to play. So I had my guitar, and I found this odd lighting, and it was one of those days where the sea was the same colour as the sky, this sort of blue-grey, right? Okay, so I found a beach, Sorrento for my West Australian viewers here, and it was this white sand and this grey-blue vista, and I placed my black and white Rickenbacker on the sand, on the white sand, and took that shot. Probably the best photograph I've ever taken. 5 minutes later, the lighting had changed, so it was an amazing thing. So I took this photograph and I captured the entire argument of the book in that cover. It was pretty stark, it was powerful, still love it as a shot. Now, of course, I was signed up for that book with an Australian university press. And I'll say it, the University of Western Australia Press. It was the worst publishing relationship I've ever had. I know there was a chance that UWA Press could have closed this year. I understand why they could have closed. They were the worst people I've ever dealt with, just to put that out there. And they didn't care about that book at all because it involved popular music, and that's a bit below them. So they didn't care. So the idea that I presented the cover to them meant that they didn't have to pay somebody to design the cover. So it was a bit of a cheap date for them, and they thought that was great. So they didn't care about the book. They didn't publicise the book, but it had a great title and it had a great cover, and it sold really well in spite of the publisher. So this book's cover captured a wider audience, a wider vista in the history of popular music, and so that book cover almost became like an album cover. So for academic books, the cover is crucial because we can't assume an audience. We're not getting the marketing budgets that trade authors get, okay? We can't assume an audience. Our work, we have to find those audiences. We have to, the buck stops with us. We have to find our audiences, and covers are the greatest strategy we have to find our audiences. 4. Okay, the book cover is a moment of design rather than research. Now, design is a remarkable field. It's an incredibly important field. I had the privilege of being a head of department of an art and design college, and it was one of the greatest privileges of my life. And what I learned about design is it's an incredibly important field, and we've got to respect it. So a lot of us are academics with our particular disciplines, we are researchers, we are writers, but we also have to respect not only our design academic colleagues, but also professional designers. We talk a lot about expertise. Our expertise is not design. Our expertise may be biology, it may be cultural studies, it's not design. So a great book cover is a powerful design moment. It is symmetrical, it uses space well, less is more, right? Less is more. I know it's a bit of a cliche, less is more, but it's pretty true here because a book cover has to be simple and stark and work on multiple interfaces. So composition matters. I focus a lot on a lot of white space or a lot of black space. Stark, Art Deco infused. To be honest with you, I sort of have been desperately spending the last 20 years constructing Pet Shop Boy album covers for my books. I wish I was joking. I'm so obsessed by the Pet Shop Boys, most of you know that. So I spend my life sort of designing a Pet Shop Boys album cover on my books. So stark, lots of white, lots of black, yeah. And I use this, and it's a joke really, because I was trying to be a Pet Shop Boys cover, so everyone can laugh at me, but I probably got this technique at its best, I think, with the book Digital Dieting. And indeed, it sort of had a joke at its focus too, which is something I always like. By the way, lots of white, black, red. Thanks for playing, right? So I did this photograph, I did this design, this was mine. And can I say also, to make it even funnier, this is my father's iPhone, okay? So I think Kev was about 87 when I gave him this iPhone, and this was his iPhone. He's now 93, hi big Kev. So this was his iPhone. And to make the joke about digital dieting, I put it on its side so the phone would look thinner. I'm the only person that got that joke, but I found that incredibly amusing. So as you can see, this was digital dieting, stark, metallic, a pretty cold cover, but clear and stark. And so this is an example of avoiding, avoid orange, avoid brown. I mean, that's just a life lesson really. Just if you're thinking of wearing brown, don't wear brown. If you're thinking of using brown, just don't wear brown. But think about red. Think about yellow, think about blue, think about white, think about black. And also, can the title be read at a distance, right? Readability, impact, everything. Contrast, contrast, contrast. Most people these days are buying books, often on Kindle, from online bookshops. So check that it works on a screen. Therefore, immediacy is crucial. The cover has to grab somebody by the neck and they go, yeah, I'll read of that, I'll buy that, yeah, come on. And the best strategy often is to just start with yourself. You look at your cover and go, would you buy that? Would you buy that? Now, if you wouldn't buy that, pick a different cover. 5. What is your focus? So as we've talked about in an earlier vlog, titles are everything. But how is that title formatted onto your cover? Formatting, design of the title can transform a pretty dodgy and third-rate title into looking pretty good, and can also destroy a really good title and make it look just ridiculous or invisible. So on the cover, obviously the focus is the title, the second focus is your name. So everything is there. Everything that exists on the cover is there to serve your title and your name. So composition is the primary trope of design. And as we know, design is an industry. Respect the designers. Now, you might have some expertise in design, I've got a bit, but that's not my area of research expertise. We need to respect the people that have that expertise. So acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses, but also seek out the views of the professionals. So this is a lovely story, this one. So I met Caroline Winterskill, Dr. Caroline Winterskill. I met Caroline decades ago. And it's quite an emotional story because Caroline changed my life. You hear it in my voice, I'm quite emotional. And Caroline picked this book up, From Revolution to Revelation. I was a minor academic, very low-level academic, in a minor city, in a minor university, in a minor country, right? I was nothing, nobody. And I just sent a completed manuscript to a British publisher. And from that pile of unsolicited manuscripts, Caroline picked out this book, From Revolution to Revelation, and she believed in it. Now, her judgment as an editor changed my life. My life as a scholar, my life as a human, was different after this book was published. And she picked the right book, probably the right researcher, and the right cover at the right time. That's a gift, and Caroline has that gift. So as you can see, this cover was absolutely perfect. Black, red, yellow. Thanks a lot. Edgy, urban. As you can see, the sort of sun is coming up after a night. And of course, the book is about, in so many ways, you know, post-youth cultures, previous youth cultures, Generation X. And it has that vibe about dancing all night and walking home as the sun is coming up. So this was absolutely magnificent. And my career was not only made by this book. To be frank with you, my career was made by this cover. Now, although I've designed a fair slab of my books, I didn't design this one. I couldn't have done anything as magnificent as this. And Caroline and a wonderful designer and I became partners and created this cover. Now, I've had similar partnerships with many different publishers. I'm currently working and have some very good relationships, I think, with Emerald Publishing. Now, as most of you know, I'm sort of in my zombie apocalypse phase at the moment in my career. I don't know how long I'll be here, but I'm pretty well enjoying it. Picasso had a blue period. I'm in the middle of my zombie period. You know, I'm writing a lot about the end of the world at the moment. Isn't that a surprise? Claustropolitanism, you know, end times. So that's where I'm sort of at the moment. And the book Trump Studies really captured this brilliantly. So my brief to the editor and to the designer was, can you make this book look like the end of the world? And wow, they did it. So you can see once more, me as an author provided a brief to the editor and to the designer, and with that abstract brief they delivered magnificently. So when I've done that, offered a vibe to people, every single time I've done it, it's been delivered. It's magnificent. So my problems have emerged when independent publishing houses that I've published with through my career have been bought by the corporates. Okay, so the University of Google cover, the book that made my life, made my career, the book cover that was featured on the front page of British newspapers, right? So that was a wonderful cover. So that was, again, Caroline and I worked on that one, agreed on that, great cover. Then Ashgate were bought by Routledge, and they released the, inverted commas, second edition of the University of Google. I had no dealings with it. I didn't even know a second edition was coming out, okay? And the cover was this weird blue-black, sort of all looking a bit spacey and electronic. Dreadful cover, absolutely dreadful cover. As I said, I had no dealing with it. didn't even know it was coming out. So when publishers ignore us, it can have an impact, and it can really destroy momentum of our career. Let me give you an example of this where a bad cover destroyed a whole trajectory of my career. Now, Ladies Who Lunch was my second book, published in 2002. This is edgy. This was a really sort of edgy book, and I wrote it to move from an academic audience to trade. This was going to be my sort of academic to trade movement book. Now, this truly dreadful cover, it is the worst cover I've ever seen. Hipster pants, for goodness sake. My goodness. So what a nightmare. So this was a dreadful cover, and it destroyed a particular trajectory of my career. So covers can do that. So it's a life lesson, I think, for students, for researchers, for editors, for publishers. If we can create that partnership with editors, partnerships with designers, then great things can occur, because we all want sales. All of us want sales. We want the best situations for authors. We want to reward the publishers that have taken a risk on us. And if we trust the publishing colleagues who are working with us by providing them with a frame or a vista or an idea, then we can also respect the work of designers. But if the publishers cut us away, and I really understand, academic authors, we are difficult. We are very, very difficult to deal with. Okay, I get that. But if we're cut away, then the research can really, really miss the mark, and sales can be lost. So covers are incredibly precious. And I'm well aware a lot of publishers at the moment are moving to generic covers. Springer is the obvious example. So Springer basically has a series of generic covers for each of their series, and there's the cover, and they plug in the title, they plug in the author's name, and that's it. And that's okay, because Springer makes its money not through differentiation or customization. Springer makes its money from cannibalizing books. So here's a book, separating the book into separate chapters, and then allowing those individual chapters to be downloaded. So the cover doesn't matter, because each individual chapter and its download is where Springer makes its money. But it is important, I think, for academics to recognise that publishing is an industry. I think we forget about all of that because it's about me. It's about me and my research. No, not hugely. If you're interested in research, you've got to be interested in the audience. And the way we get our research to an audience is through publishers. And most publishers are not charities, they're businesses. Now, we can, as academics, select ethical and independent publishers. That's been my choice for a lot of the last decade, and you can choose that. I may make different choices in the future. That has served me well at the moment. But the key through all of these discussions, I hope, is that I ask you to think about building authentic relationships with publishers, with editors, and with designers. And if those authentic partnerships are created, the results can be stunning. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.